constantly stimulated by multimedia technology. And it strikes me that many of us are living permanently in our outer world of action, connection, and doing. Now, could this be the reason that our physical appearance is often so deeply connected to how happy we are? Always busy and painted as we wish to be seen in the company of others, we judge based on what we see, on what we are shown. And the media bombards us with manipulated imagery and fear-based marketing that fuels our comparative nature to extremes and crushes our human potential. In our quest for control, we can often lose sight of our connection with nature. We can become to see ourselves as separate from it. And these combined pressures of our modern world often give rise to feelings of isolation, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and even self-harm. But for a moment, imagine, if you will, open your hearts and your minds to a world where we use imagery to inspire our connection with nature, to heal our limiting self-beliefs, and to expand our human potential. Now, there are few moments more rewarding in my life than when a woman looks in the back of my camera and says, "Wow, is that really me?" Now, I've seen photography transform perspectives, open hearts, and have women say yes to themselves. And I've noticed a common thread over the years. Each woman, in her own unique way, feels that she is not enough. Not boob enough, not bum enough, not tall enough, not slim enough, not curvy enough, not pretty enough, not. And it's exhausting, right? I've been there myself. So much energy wasted on putting ourselves down and comparing with others. Now, I help women to feel beautiful by focusing on all that they are, and not in a contrived studio setting where she is overly made over and posed and doesn't recognize herself in the images, but in nature, where she is free to play and explore her femininity. Now, my love affair with photography began at college with studio black and white portraiture. And in my 20s, I was fortunate to travel all around the world, and I captured it all through my lens. And what I noticed on all the places I visited was a rhythm, a pulse. The land has resonance. It speaks to us. It shapes us. Why else would we speak in different tongues, have different skin colour and genes, and create such a diverse array of music? Now, each of my journeys into the wild were as much a pilgrimage as they were a physical trip. And I can see now in hindsight how I found healing and understanding in every step. You see, I've not always lived my life as an artist, doing what I love. It's taken me years to heal my story. I've suffered with abuse, abandonment, but I'm grateful for every wounding because it's brought me here to this moment. Now, of all my transformative travels, the first began here in the UK. I walked the coast to coast, 190 miles across Britain, with everything I needed on my back. I was 17 at the time. And as a city girl, all the nature and wide open space, it just changed something in me. And it created this traveller's thirst that was very, very hard to quench. So I worked in corporate roles, I saved really hard, and when I was 25, I took my first trip around the world. And I had a deep, deep passion to live by the ocean. And this took me to the island of Bermuda, a little island paradise, where I worked as an executive PA, and I would go to Puerto Rico, Miami, to organise like 5-star events. At home, I'd sit on my bedroom balcony and sip my morning tea, watching the sunrise come up over the ocean. And it was amazing. It was a beautiful life for about 3 years, until all the spiritual work I'd been doing gradually increased its intensity. And I just couldn't show up to work anymore. I couldn't be a cog in that corporate masculine wheel, you know. It just wasn't me. I felt like I was wearing a mask. And I burned out at age 31. And while I was lying in that hospital bed, I realised it was time to quit my life in paradise. And I took an oath that whatever I did next, it would be from the heart, and it would change something in the world. I travelled to Asia next for a 10-month trip to just clear the way and focus on my future. And I was guided to take a hike around the Annapurna circuit, which goes to 5,500 metres. It's the highest I've ever been, and I faced death in the eye more than once on this trip. And I remembered who I was, who I had always been. I returned to the UK after 6 years travelling overseas, and I was immediately struck by the huge increase in body image issues. Did you know that 1.6 million people in the UK currently suffer with an eating disorder? And what I really want to ask is, are you okay with that? Because I'm really not okay with that. Here was my big why. I was passionate about changing this. And I thought, well, if imagery got us into this mess, then perhaps imagery can get us out of it. In 2009, I created a collection of portraits called The Goddess Within. 13 portraits of women from all walks of life. I featured a porn star, a lawyer, and many in between. And I didn't want this to be just another gritty art project. I wanted it to suggest the possibility of a transition where we focused on the inner beauty of women and also women from all ages and backgrounds and sizes, that there was no discrimination. And this exhibition was so well received that I found my life's purpose in the 13 women who put their trust in me in this project. Now, I use the words transparent photography to describe my style of work. It's all about getting people to look past the external image and dive deeper into the essence of who they are. You see, we don't see ourselves as others see us, right? When we look in the mirror, we look to fix something, to change something. So when we actually see ourselves as others see us, it can often come as a surprise. But accepting ourselves as we are can often be a challenge, especially for us women, I feel. And perhaps that's because we women are cyclic. You see, we're like the weather. Through our monthly cycle, we journey through the 4 seasons and their corresponding qualities. In the summer season, we're hot and fertile and visible. And in the winter season, we're cold, withdrawn, and bleeding. Unlike men who have testosterone that gradually declines with age, women are constantly having to adapt to these hormonal tides of light and dark. So is it any wonder that we can seem a little bit crazy and unpredictable to the people around us at times? And it's this seasonal wheel of elements and archetypes that forms the very heart of all of my work. Now, Western culture has a very narrow view of human beauty, which rarely extends beyond childbearing years. The media puts a tremendous amount of pressure on men and women to stay young and beautiful. Anti-aging products subliminally suggest don't get old and wise. But aging is a natural cycle of all living things. Without winter, there would be no spring and no harvest in the summer. And as well as aging, we women, we're shamed for so many things. For having nipples, for gaining weight, for losing weight, for being intuitive, for being emotional. But worst of all, we're shamed for having periods. We're literally told to put a plug in it, pretend like it's not happening. Outsmart Mother Nature, one sanitary brand suggests. These are toxic words. How will young women ever embrace who they are and learn to love themselves when they're denied a truth at the very core of their being? By suppressing menstruation with ignorance, with fear, with hormonal contraception, we're really denying women the full expression of their feminine nature. And this is the dark half of the feminine. And she's feared by our mostly patriarchal society. She's empowered. She's an enchantress, perhaps. However you choose to label her. It is she who brings darkness on others. But this is the outsider's view as a woman retreats inside herself to a place where she can renew, to a place where her intuition is tremendously heightened and she has an inner creativity. So if we were to reclaim this dark half of the feminine, I believe that we could live a much more balanced and empowered life as a society. But to put these in perspective for you, I'd just like to share with you 3 women's stories. This is Julie. Julie was formerly a professional dancer, and she came to me just as I was creating my first collection of goddess portraits. She'd suffered with bulimia for 33 years. You can probably see how thin her arms are in this image. And she said, I want to be a goddess because I don't think I'm going to be here for much longer. So the focus for Julie's session was to reintroduce her to her light half of the feminine, to the spring maiden, the young girl who loved to dance, who was carefree and adventurous. And we did just that, and it was really transformational for both of us. Julie celebrated her next birthday with friends. She went out and dined and went home that night and digested her first meal in 33 years. And when Julie told me how much it had changed for her, she nudged me on the shoulder and said, "Thank you, Samjhana. You're a lifesaver." And I cried, because look at what I'd discovered with Julie's trust in me. This is Katrin. Now, Katrin came to me, very different story. She was turning 40, wanted to celebrate the next phase in her life. She was at the edge of a burnout and leaving her job. She felt, she'd worked alongside men for so many years and felt she'd really lost touch with her femininity. So Katrin's session was very much about her seeing herself as this, soft, feminine woman. And through the process and through seeing her images, she was able to reconnect with that side of herself. And fast forward 2 years, she'd been looking to find a man and start a family. And here she is, she commissioned me to take this portrait of her and her unborn baby. Finally, this is Henrietta. And Henrietta suffered with anorexia, bulimia, and she tried to commit suicide twice, all before the age of 30. Why? Because she hated her curvaceous figure. She was ridiculed at school for developing early and bullied, and she could just never accept herself as a woman. And so I'll never forget the moment I uncovered this portrait for Henrietta. She was so taken aback. She gasped and threw her hands over her face and said, "Samjhana, is that me in that picture?" And I said, "Yes, Eti, come take a closer look." And she peeked through her fingers and she said, "But Samjhana, I'm so beautiful." And Henrietta's life changed in this moment, as did mine. She no longer went to her group therapy classes, baseball cap, big baggy t-shirt. She used to sit with her knees clasped to her chest, hiding away. She started to open up, and she started to talk. And her therapists, when they said, "Well, Hetty, any ideas why you're making sudden progress?" And she said, "Yes." She showed them her pictures, and they were taken aback too. And she said, "This is why I saw myself for the very first time." So transparent photography is a ceremony, a ritual of being seen authentically, woman to woman. Holding yourself as a work of art, at one with nature, feeling connected, is a tremendously powerful experience. And every woman who has graced my lens has taught me so much about standing in my own feminine power. And just by looking at them, other women are able to say yes to themselves. And I want this freedom for the next generation. I dream of a world where the media uses photography to empower us, not belittle us. Where women are celebrated for being more than just sex symbols, and where we don't feel the need to shrink into a mold to be beautiful. Where a young girl's first blood is celebrated as a sacred gift and not labelled as a curse. So don't drown in the dogma. Listen to the whispers of your own inner voice. Have courage to trust and follow your heart, for it will uncover who you truly are. And always remember, doesn't matter how well you dress it up on the outside, it's really what's inside that counts. Your inner radiance is what makes you truly beautiful. So men and women, you are cyclic, you are nature, and you are perfectly imperfect, just the way you are. So next time you feel like you're not enough, not handsome enough, not pretty enough, not wealthy enough, not. Go to a mirror, place both hands upon your heart, take a deep breath, look yourself in the eyes, and say, I am enough. Thank you.